Hi, I'm Chris, and this is the Run Your Mind podcast, where we focus on the mindset and mental well-being side of running and fitness. Each episode brings you insights to help you build a healthy mindset with honest conversations and practical tools that you can use in your own fitness journey, giving you what you need to work on your mind, not just your mileage.
What does resilience mean to you, and how has your understanding of it evolved over time?
Today, I'm joined by Dan Williams, and we're talking about resilience. Dan will be sharing what resilience means to him personally, how he's handled setbacks and knockbacks along the way, the biggest shift that's helped improve his mindset, and advice for those looking to build their own self-belief. So let's get into it.
So welcome to today's pod. Today I'm joined by Dan. Welcome, Dan.
Thanks for having me. Unusual, but thank you.
You're welcome. For those watching this that maybe aren't as familiar, which might not be many, of who you are, do you mind giving us a bit of an overview as to who you are first of all?
Yeah, so I guess a good quick overview is I'm a serial entrepreneur in the health and wellness space. I've been in the space probably 10 years now. Founded a retail business called WIT Fitness, which some people may have heard about, which we're still involved with, like the reincarnation of it. And more recently, the last 2-3 years, I've been involved in various startups from gyms to e-commerce businesses in supporting the founders and the businesses in early stage growth from like 1 to 10 million pounds. So I guess I kind of live and breathe fitness.
Yeah.
And I've been in the space since you can kind of say it began, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons I think we met through a mutual contact, John, and followed the journey since, and it's been incredible, obviously, what you've built and the following and the people around it. But what got you into fitness? If you go back, way back when, what was the initial spark that got you interested in it?
I think, like a lot of people, I've always been into sport. And at school and uni, I was into sport. I was like good at it, but not brilliant.
Yeah.
And I was a reasonably good runner. And I tried to become a professional runner. I was like a semi-pro runner, and then you kind of give that up, and I fell into fitness via a CrossFit gym maybe 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And the rest is history, really. Since then I've based an hour of my day around CrossFit or some form of strength and conditioning, and it replaced my sport, so I couldn't live without it now.
Yeah. So today's topic is all around resilience. I think it's, when I started this pod, the idea being that we talk about these topics, because I think resilience can be one of those words, can't it, where people almost say you've got to be resilient, you've got to have a resilient mindset, whether that's to everyday life or fitness or running, whatever it might be, but don't really break it down as to how you can work on it and what you can do to develop it as well. So my first question for you today is, what does resilience mean to you? And how has your understanding of it evolved over time?
I think to me, like, resilience means even if you take a couple of steps back each day or week, always finding a way to move forward over the longer term.
Yeah.
You have setbacks. I have setbacks every morning. And then you have bigger setbacks, maybe once, twice a year, and even bigger, once, twice in your lifetime. Sometimes you have to take a step back and acknowledge them.
Yeah.
They can affect you, but as long as in the long term you're moving forward, for me that's resilience. There's nothing wrong with taking small steps back as long as you're always moving forward.
Yeah. And has that changed? Like, if you took yourself back maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, would the perception of that be different, or even further back?
I think as you get older, the meaning of all of this stuff changes a little bit. I think you have more perspective in life. You're more grateful about what you've got. You understand, what's around you and how lucky we are to be here.
Yeah.
So I think, back in the day, I think resilience would just be ignoring everything, shutting it out and carrying on.
Yeah.
Whereas now I think it's like, again, sometimes it's taking that step back, understanding what's happened to you,
Yeah.
and using that to go forward in the long term.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think that's what I see is a lot of people have a perception of resilience is you should always be strong and should never face any setbacks or admit you're struggling with something. But that isn't natural and that isn't life. And I think when you feel like that, when you do have those moments, you can be more self-critical of yourself and judge yourself for it and almost think, I'm not resilient, when actually you, as you say, it's more about not necessarily not having those knockbacks, but how you deal with them and get back up after you've dealt with them.
I think you've got to embrace knockbacks. I think you've got to embrace a bit of pain and a bit of sadness to like feel proper joy and success.
Yeah.
But when you're younger, you just shut it off, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess it changes over time.
Yeah, I heard this quote a few weeks ago where it was like, someone said, the moment I realised we're not meant to be happy and excited all the time was the moment things changed for me.
That's so true.
It's just like changing that expectation of this should be your default setting and having that mindset that I always need to feel like this, because to your point then, when you're not and these other emotions or feelings show up, you're then like, something's wrong with me or something's happened.
Yeah, and obviously in this day and age compared to when I was younger, like you're seeing social media and you're seeing the stuff that isn't reality versus what is reality on the everyday, on the inside. So it's even more challenging nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when it comes to social media, like there is that constant comparison now, isn't there, of just thinking, and I think it's got a little bit better in terms of people talking about things not going to plan, the London Marathon recently, and seeing people being a bit more vulnerable and honest with what their expectations were. But there's definitely this habit to almost like compare your bloopers, your everyday life, to people's highlight reels, and just think like they always seem resilient or confident or so prepared for everything, and then there's me, which again just makes you probably feel worse about a situation.
It does. When you're a bit older, like you realise that that's not reality, but it's hard. It takes time to come to that realisation. And everyone likes a dopamine hit. I like a dopamine hit, like scrolling a bit.
Yeah.
But you just can't take it seriously.
No. So, next question on this, it kind of links to what we were just talking about there. Can you share a personal story where you had to tap into your resilience about overcoming a significant challenge?
Yeah, I usually share professional ones, but for you, I'll share a personal one.
Thank you.
I think like a lot of people in life, I lost a few friends in a short period of time in my mid-20s.
Yeah.
And it's kind of earth-shattering when you're young, when you first lose someone. And it wasn't in nice circumstances. And you do go into yourself, and it really, really impacted me.
Yeah.
But one thing I remember from the day after each incident was just remember this feeling and bottle this feeling. And it goes back to what I said, like, I wanted to like thrive and utilise that pain. So when I face small challenges in life, what I see as small challenges in work or in your personal life, relationships, nothing can compare with that feeling.
Yeah.
There's always people worse off. There's always worse off in your life. And the thing is, you're human, so you forget that.
Yeah.
But I always use the worst I've ever felt, the worst pain I've ever felt, to move forward with what I see as really small challenges day to day, really.
Yeah. And when that happened, were you able, for example, I know it's obviously unfortunate to go through those situations repeatedly, but how soon were you able to do that? Was it after a couple of times happening, or was it something you did immediately?
That's a good point. I think the first one was really, 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 really hard, like it is for anyone. And it's very tragic when it's a young person. So I think I probably didn't recover from that well.
Yeah.
But I would say that and they happened in such quick succession. They were all the catalysts for what I've gone on to do.
Yeah.
Like they led me to another career path. I realised I wasn't chasing a purpose, and that pain I felt I could use for resilience. And it's just using it to move forward. So I think I did that pretty quickly, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, it's that moment, isn't it, when these things happen? It's not saying you're grateful for the thing happening, but you can be grateful for what it's taught you and what you've learned as a result of it, and that perspective is key. I use it a lot, even with running. Some people watching this will know, like, whenever I do races, I write on my hand, remember when you couldn't run?
Yeah.
Because I had asthma growing up. I couldn't really run from like 5 to 10 without wheezing.
Yeah.
And I still remember like having asthma attacks and struggling to breathe. So I kind of remind myself, oh, it's never going to be as bad as that.
Yeah.
And if you could manage that, you can manage this. And it's not to avoid having any compassion or empathy for yourself in that moment, but it's sort of remind yourself you can get through it and you'll 100%. Learn something from it.
100%. And I think that's a great example. I think like when you line up for 10k or high rocks or a CrossFit competition or anything you're going to feel real physical pain.
Yeah.
you just got to remind yourself how fucking cool that is that you're doing that. And by the way, I forget. And even like 2 weeks ago, I did a mixed high rock, and she was like, "This is just fun.
Yeah.
Let's just have fun." And you remember, you take everything so seriously, don't you?
Yeah.
But you're totally right. It's just like, remember the worst times, and you're just suddenly more grateful.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not trying to create some toxic positivity either, is it? It's not ignoring those feelings or
No.
situation, but it's just having a more balanced view to it and avoiding, particularly when smaller things happen, to actually go, I've dealt with bigger things here, and there's a bit of perspective around it.
It's definitely not ignoring, and like that pain lives with you forever, but it's just, it doesn't need to be a bad thing, basically.
No. So next question for you then. What advice would you give to someone wanting to build their confidence but who may battle with anxiety or self-doubt around it?
So I think it's a good question, because self-confidence, especially as an entrepreneur, self-confidence, I personally think self-confidence is arguably the number one ingredient you need to be successful, because you've got to back yourself, and your entrepreneurs are the ones that got the balls to do it. And when you're battling against it, I've probably battled against self-confidence when I've made mistakes in business. And I personally spoke to other people. It took me many years to do it. I personally found a really good business coach. When I thought that had got a bit dry, I used another business coach. More recently, I've been using a personal therapist. And for me, like, stepping out of the trenches and speaking to someone who's not in the trenches with you, it can really help you realise what you have achieved. And you've got to look back at what you have achieved and what you're achieving every single day, every single minute. And it really helped my self-confidence. But it's super important, because it's just so important. As an ingredient in life, it's so important.
What's one thing then, as a result of speaking to those people, that you now do or think differently, do you think, than before?
Well, 100%. I reflect on my achievements on a daily basis. And I, obviously, like in life, you think you're not doing enough. A lot of people think you're not doing enough. Especially as an entrepreneur, you're always chasing, even if you have success. And I think, you get a bit of gratefulness, and you realise the small and big wins you're doing every day, and also what a bloody good time you're having compared to most people. So I just try and reflect on that, really.
I think self-reflection is definitely something that's helped me over the years with business and personal, and even particularly when it comes to sport, is again going back to that social media. It's so easy to go online and see someone who's done a faster high rocks time than you, or a faster split, or faster marathon time, or just got into running and all of a sudden saw someone the other day, first marathon like 2:48.
It's mad.
Again, it's that self-reflection. I think I find this comparison with others, the more you reflect on your own journey, the less your brain goes looking externally for comparison. And when it does, it's more for inspiration rather than intimidation. That's very true, because by the way, everyone's going to make those comparisons, aren't they? Like you and I, as we are admitting now, we make those comparisons, so it's important to do that. So with that piece then around building confidence, with that self-reflection, what's one example recently where because you've reflected on something, it's built your confidence around it, or how you look at it?
I don't think I've got one single example, but honestly, every single night I question, have I achieved anything today? Or the last week or last month? And I guess, and that's something I work on in like coaching and therapy. I'm always chasing, even when I'm having success. So for me, it's a constant challenge. And it's not, maybe it's not a self-confidence thing, but I'm always questioning, am I doing enough? And that's why I have to reflect every day, what I do in the mornings, on what you have achieved that day, and I just have to do it continuously. Basically. A lot of people, I mean, sure you're the same, but you're just thinking constantly, 24/7. And part of that is, am I doing well enough, or have I done this well enough, or have I made the right decision? And you just got to be at peace with the decisions you're making.
And I guess it's with self-reflection, what I've found is that it's about answering those questions, but maybe reframing them. Like, am I doing enough is, what have I done like this week? Or I often ask myself weekly or monthly, how am I better off compared to this time last week or month? So it's sort of framed in that way where I can go looking for it. It's not ignoring the things I'm still struggling with, but it is providing recognition of what I've progressed with at the same time, and answering some of those questions rather than leading them. I always think if someone else was asking me this question, would I think they were judging me, or would it be a beneficial question to ask me?
Yeah, no, I think that you're absolutely right again, because, you know, an example would be, I don't know about you, but I set resolutions at the beginning of each year, or challenges and landmarks, and sometimes you get 3-4 months in, I think without any detailed thought, I haven't achieved any of them, I'm not achieving them. Then when you break it down and think about it, you're actually putting stepping stones in place to achieve them.
Yeah.
So you are moving forward, and it's just like checking in to make sure you're just moving forward a little bit.
Yeah, that's interesting. I read this article a few years ago where this professor came into class one day and said to everyone, at the end of this semester, I'll give you an A star. If you can write me a letter imagining it's the end of semester and you've achieved that A star, what you've done and how you've got there. And I think like 90% of the people ended up actually getting an A star.
Really?
Apart from that, and since then, every year at the start of the year, I've written myself an email that comes through on the 31st of December.
Really?
And it's written as in, I'm reflecting at the end of the year, here's what I've done and here's how I got there.
Yeah.
And it's really helped me in a couple of ways. One, it's helped me define what I really want to do, not what I think I should do.
Yeah.
Because again, I think when we set goals, it can be exciting at the start of the year, but sometimes it can be, oh, I want to set it because everyone else is saying it. You know, and it's actually sitting there and going, imagine if I experienced this, imagine if I did that marathon, or imagine if I entered that high rocks competition or achieved this, how would I feel? And if that feeling isn't there, then it's probably not the right thing for me.
Yeah.
And I think secondly, it's helped me then realise how I've got there. Because I think goals are important, but it's the habits, isn't it? It's the things you do each day that go, if I've achieved this goal, how have I done it? And it's been nice to do, and I've actually copied in a couple of people each year who I know are going to hold me accountable.
That's good.
And I've not achieved it all the time.
Yeah.
You know, I've probably done about 7 out of the 10 things. Yeah. And I think last year I did 8. But reflected on it throughout the year and maybe even changed some, but it was helped me become more conscious of it throughout the year.
Yeah, that's also a bit of manifestation, isn't it?
Yeah.
It sounds like you're setting those goals. You're not like strategically thinking about them every single day, but because you've created that feeling that what it'll feel like to achieve them, it's almost happening naturally.
Yeah, for sure. So outside of what we've spoken about then, what advice or one thing would you suggest to people that if they want to work on their mindset to help them with their performance, whether that's in any form of fitness or in general day-to-day life? We've talked about self-reflection. Is there anything else that you think would be really beneficial for someone, and talking about the how, like what's one thing they can do to start implementing it?
Self-reflection is the number one, but like I think I alluded to in my personal and professional life, I always think talking to doesn't have to be a professional.
Yep.
Talking to someone who's been through something, one of your friends, family that you know has been through something, whether that's professional, sporting, personal, it's so valuable, honestly. And I know that from the advice I pass on to people, entrepreneurs now, and I don't do that from just a professional perspective. Like when you've been through something, you can see what they're going through, and you can speak to them about it. I know it's a stereotypical thing to say, but it's finding that person to speak to.
Yeah.
But you can't do that without the self-reflection, right?
No.
You have to be aware. You have to be aware of how you're feeling.
Yeah, because then without it, you can almost go and rely on external validation too much, or look for them to reassure you or give you the clues of what's going well. But yeah, I think and that's the thing about these things. It's often, they say the best things are the simple things, aren't they? But having that conversation sort of takes it out of your head as well and allows you to have a bit more of a perspective.
Well, what you're doing is a prime example. It's just like encouraging people just to, maybe it's not even specifically talking about what they want to talk about.
Yep.
But they're in an environment and a group of people that at one point they might talk to you about it. And that's self-reflection, that's self-awareness. They're already on that journey.
Definitely.
Because I think you do have to be ready yourself to speak to people.
For sure. So, quick fire round.
Yeah.
You haven't seen these questions, have you?
No.
So, let's go for them. The best advice you've received about building resilience or confidence is fill in the blank.
Probably a business coach. Sorry, that was very slow.
No, so fine. thoughtful answer.
Too thoughtful.
So, time for quick fire questions. Questions that you haven't seen yet. First one is, the two things that help me switch off and reset my mind outside of fitness are...
You would ask outside of fitness, but definitely reading. I read a lot of philosophy over the last 2 years. That definitely helped. And spending time with the right group of friends.
Nice. Any particular book that you'd recommend around philosophy?
Well, my go-to is like Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, but there's so much. But if you're into stoicism and like gratefulness and self-reflection, that's a good one.
Yep. Great. Okay. One mantra or quote that helps me with my resilience is...
I just said it. I'm going to say the same thing again, but just always move forward.
Yeah.
And it's just always move forward. It's always in my head.
When you think of that, how does that affect if you've had a setback like we were talking about earlier on? What's the reaction from that?
Whenever you have a setback, like we discussed, there's going to be an element of self-pity.
Yeah.
And there quite rightly should be sometimes. But I always now take a step back.
Yeah.
And I know I will move forward.
Yeah.
I know nothing can stop me, and I will move forward.
Yeah.
And that's personal or professional. And I find that's just a way more positive way to live.
Yeah, I was talking about this the other day actually on that point. I think with failure or knockbacks, they can affect you as long as you let them. Like, it's in your choice. A lot of the time, you might not have been able to control what has happened to you, but you can control how you respond to it. And as you say, the longer you sit on something, the more likely you are to judge yourself for it or to think about the what ifs or could have been, should have beens.
Yeah, so I know this is quick fire, but that's actually a key point, because I found like I've been through some things professionally where I could have and did hold a grudge and bitterness. But I realised that those two things, holding a grudge and bitterness towards a human being or a situation, are truly toxic.
Yeah.
So now I think I just move forward as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
But again, I guess it's going through experiences to realise that.
Yeah. Well, it's also, some people might think it comes with experience, but it's still, as you say, like noticing and reflecting on those experiences that allows you to do that.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, final quick fire. The best advice you've received about building resilience or confidence is?
Best advice I've received definitely from my father, and it's not specific advice, it's just through his serendipitous really. His journey has been so similar to mine in that professional success and like really big professional success, really big professional failure. Some very serious instances of grief and some very, huge moments of joy.
Yeah.
And because I've heard that journey, I guess because I grew up hearing about that journey, it must have stood me in good stead for the rest of my life.
Great. Well, Dan, thank you so much for joining me on the run today and
thank you. It's been
chatting
fun
about this. If you're wanting to follow Dan or find out a bit more about him, if you're not already, check the comments below and you'll find all the links and details there. And let us know how you found the episode, what you took from it, and if there's any in particular topics that you want to cover next time. Stay mindful.
Thank you. Well, I was going to give you a fist bump as well.
We'll come back.
Leave me hanging there.